Have you ever been around a young child who suddenly goes from laughing to crying in the blink of an eye? Maybe they were playing happily 1 minute and the next, they're melting down over something as simple as the color of their cup. You stand there thinking, where did that come from? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And chances are, what you were seeing wasn't bad behavior, it was overstimulation. Now, if you're over 60, like many of us, you've probably seen a few generations of parenting come and go. You've likely raised your own kids without tablets or flashing toys or the constant buzz of noise that fills homes today. Back then, kids played outside more, there were fewer distractions, and things moved at a different pace. But now, everything is louder, faster, and more crowded, with screens, schedules, and even expectations. And while children haven't changed all that much, their environment sure has. That's why it's so important to know the signs of overstimulation and what to do when it happens. Not just for parents, but for grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone helping raise or care for a child. Because when you can spot it early and respond calmly, you can prevent a small moment from turning into a full-blown meltdown. And believe me, that can make a world of difference. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 signs that a child might be overstimulated and, just as importantly, how you can help them calm down gently and effectively. We're not here to judge anyone's parenting or bring back the good old days. We're just going to have an honest, practical conversation about how to support kids, and yourself, in a world that's gotten a little bit too loud. Let's begin with the first sign, and it's one that's often mistaken for just plain bad behavior: sudden emotional outbursts. Maybe the child starts crying for no clear reason. Or maybe they snap at their sibling, yell, or even throw something across the room. What looks like anger or defiance is often just overwhelm. Their brain is flooded. The lights are too bright, the noise is too much, and they just don't have the words to say, "I'm overstimulated." So their body says it for them, loudly. I remember my friend, a grandmother of 4, telling me about a moment with her youngest grandson. They were at a birthday party, balloons, music, a bounce house, the works. At first, he was thrilled. Running around, laughing, having the time of his life. But then, out of nowhere, he threw himself on the ground and started sobbing. People around her gave that look, you know the one. But she didn't scold or panic. She just knelt beside him, held out her arms, and whispered, "Too much." He nodded and melted into her hug. That's the power of recognizing the signs. Because it's not about fixing the behavior, it's about meeting the need underneath it. The second sign is something more subtle, but just as important: physical restlessness. Some kids show this by bouncing from one activity to the next, unable to sit still or focus. Others might suddenly start spinning, running in circles, or clinging to adults. It's like their bodies are trying to get the excess energy out. And if we're not paying attention, we might mistake it for hyperactivity or even mischief. But here's the thing: kids don't always know how to say, "I need a break." So they act it out. Their bodies tell us before their words do. And when we see that, we can step in, not with discipline, but with calm redirection. Maybe it means turning off the TV for a bit, dimming the lights, or guiding them to a quieter space. Sometimes all it takes is a cozy corner with a blanket and a book to reset their system. Other times, just holding their hand and sitting with them silently for a few minutes can work wonders. And I want to pause here for a second, because as someone who's seen a lot of life, you already know the power of stillness. You know that sometimes the best response isn't a flurry of activity or even a string of words, it's just being there. Children feel that. They feel when we're calm, even if they aren't. And that calmness is contagious, especially when they're spinning out. Now, let's talk about a third sign, one that might surprise you: withdrawal. You might think overstimulated kids always get loud and chaotic, but sometimes they go quiet instead. They might hide behind a piece of furniture, cover their ears, or go off alone and seem upset without saying why. This kind of overstimulation looks more like sadness or anxiety, and it's easy to miss. One grandmother I spoke with said her granddaughter would often retreat to the hallway during family dinners, quiet, curled up with her doll, not wanting to talk. At first, they worried she was shy or upset. But then they realized the noise and the crowd were just too much for her little nervous system. Now, before big gatherings, they prepare a quiet room with soft lighting, books, and stuffed animals, and she knows she can go there whenever she needs. It's her safe space, and it's made all the difference. These kinds of adjustments might seem small to us, but to a child, they're everything. And when you can recognize what's really going on, when you see a tantrum, restlessness, or withdrawal not as a problem but as a signal, it changes the way you respond. It brings more peace into the moment. And honestly, it makes you feel more confident too, because now you know what's going on and how to help. Now that we've talked about emotional outbursts, restlessness, and withdrawal, let's keep going, because there are still more signs to explore and a few simple but powerful ways to bring calm into those overstimulating moments. When we start to see those early signs of overstimulation, whether it's emotional outbursts, restlessness, or withdrawal, it helps us step in gently before things spiral. But there are a couple more signs that can sneak up on us, especially if we're not used to thinking about overstimulation as something children can't always explain. One of the more surprising signs is sensitivity to touch or sound. A child who's overstimulated might suddenly act out when asked to put on a sweater, or they might cover their ears at the sound of a vacuum cleaner or even cheerful music. It can be confusing at first, especially if that child loved that song or wore that shirt just yesterday. But in that overstimulated state, even little sensations can feel like too much. Their nervous system is already buzzing, so a slightly itchy tag or a loud voice can feel unbearable. I remember a story from a woman who'd helped raise her grandson while his parents worked full-time. She told me how he used to adore bath time, bubbles, toys, the whole thing. But after a long, overstimulating day at daycare, the same bath he once loved became a meltdown trigger. He'd scream when his feet hit the water. Not because he hated baths, but because his little system just couldn't handle one more sensation. She learned to shift their routine. Now, instead of diving straight into the bath after daycare, they sit together on the couch, reading quietly for 10 minutes. No screens. No music. Just soft voices and the comfort of her presence. Then, and only then, does the bath go smoothly again. It's small changes like that which make a big difference. And here's another sign that often gets missed, especially by those of us who were raised to believe that a tired child will sleep, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. It sounds backward, doesn't it? You'd think that all that energy, all that running around, would wear a child out. But when a child is overstimulated, their body is revved up. Their brain is still sorting through all the noise, colors, sounds, and feelings from the day. It's like trying to sleep after drinking too much coffee. You're exhausted, but your body doesn't know how to settle. Now, for those of us over 60, we know a thing or two about the importance of winding down before bed. Maybe you've swapped evening news for a warm cup of tea and a book, or you keep the lights low as bedtime approaches. Kids need the same. A peaceful bedtime routine, one that doesn't include a screen, can be a powerful tool for calming their overstimulated minds. One grandfather told me he made a no-talking rule for the last 5 minutes of bedtime. Not in a strict way, but in a soft, ritualistic way. They'd snuggle in, close their eyes, and just breathe together. He'd whisper, "Now we rest," and that was their cue. It helped his grandson feel grounded, connected, and safe. And for a child who's been bombarded with stimulation all day, safety is the magic ingredient for calm. So once you start to notice these signs, whether it's the fidgeting, the hiding, the sudden tears, or the refusal to put on socks, you begin to understand that it's not about discipline or spoiling or giving in. It's about tuning in. Because when you respond to overstimulation with empathy instead of punishment, you're actually teaching children how to regulate their emotions. And that's a skill that will serve them well long after they've outgrown toys and tantrums. One of the most powerful things you can do is to offer a calm, quiet space, not just a physical one, but an emotional one. That means staying calm yourself, even when they aren't. And I'll be the first to say, that's easier said than done, especially when you're tired, or when their parents are stressed, or when it's the fourth meltdown of the day. But remember this, you don't have to fix the moment. You just have to be steady in it. Your presence, your tone, your body language, your breath can speak louder than anything you say. And it's okay to keep it simple. Sometimes, helping a child calm down is as basic as turning off the TV, dimming the lights, and sitting quietly next to them while they play with a toy. Other times, it's humming a song softly while they sway in your arms, or just letting them sit on your lap without asking questions. I've seen grandparents do this instinctively. They don't try to distract or scold. They don't say, "You're fine" or "Stop crying." They just are there. Soft hands, calm voice, no rush. That kind of presence is a gift, one that's becoming more rare in a world full of noise and screens and hurry. And if you're thinking, "I don't always get it right," well, neither does anyone else. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being patient. It's about recognizing when a child's behavior is a cry for comfort instead of control, and learning how to offer that comfort without getting swept up in the chaos. Now that we've looked at how overstimulation can show up in a child's body and behavior, whether it's the fidgeting, the touch sensitivity, or the trouble sleeping, it's time to gently bring everything together and talk about the simple, powerful ways we can respond. Because once we know what to look for, we can stop guessing, stop reacting, and start supporting these little ones in the way they truly need. By now, you've probably started to connect the dots. You might even be thinking back to moments with your own children or grandchildren, times when you thought they were being difficult, but now realize they might have just been overwhelmed. And that's the beauty of understanding overstimulation. Once you start seeing it for what it is, you stop blaming the child and yourself. Instead, you start creating space for calm, connection, and real growth. We've talked about those big emotions, the restless energy, the moments of withdrawal, sensitivity to sound or touch, and even how overstimulation can show up at bedtime. But there's one more layer to this, what we bring into the moment. Because as caregivers, whether we're parents, grandparents, or beloved family members, our energy is the anchor in a storm. Children, especially when they're overstimulated, are like little antennas. They pick up on everything: our tone, our body language, our breathing. If we're rushing, tense, or frustrated, they feel it, even if we don't say a word. But the good news? They also feel our calm. And that calm is often the most powerful tool we have. I remember chatting with a woman who helped raise her great-niece. She said something that stuck with me: when she's falling apart, I become the calmest version of myself, not because I always feel calm, but because that's what she needs from me. And isn't that the heart of caregiving? Becoming what the child needs, in that moment, without losing yourself in the process. Now, calming a child who's overstimulated doesn't require anything fancy. No gadgets. No parenting trends. Just presence. Start by removing them from the source of overstimulation, if you can. That might mean stepping outside for fresh air, going into a quiet room, or even just turning off the television. Keep your own voice low and steady. Speak less. Move slower. These are signals to the child's nervous system that it's safe to settle down. One very simple practice that many grandparents find helpful is what I like to call the anchor breath. When a child is spiraling, you take a deep breath, audibly, intentionally, right in front of them. No words, just breath. You're not asking them to breathe yet. You're just modeling it. 1 breath. 2. Maybe 3. And often, like magic, their body starts to mirror yours. Not because you told them to calm down, but because you showed them how. Another beautiful way to create calm is with physical closeness. Now, of course, every child is different. Some want to be held right away, while others need space. But when it's appropriate, something as simple as resting a hand gently on their back or holding their little hand can help them feel grounded. It says, "You're not alone. I'm here." That simple touch can do more than 100 words ever could. And don't be afraid of silence. So many of us were raised to believe that we have to talk through every problem, fill every quiet moment with advice or correction. But sometimes, the greatest gift you can give a child is space to come back to themselves, without pressure, without shame. Just you, beside them, holding space. Now, if you're thinking, this all sounds good, but what if it doesn't work right away? That's okay. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes the child will still cry, still thrash, still push away. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means they're still learning. And so are we. Every moment like this is an opportunity, not to control the child, but to build trust. To show them that even when they're at their worst, they are still worthy of love, still safe, still seen. And when we do that consistently, their meltdowns soften. Their recovery time shortens. And most of all, their confidence grows. Let me also say this, it's okay to step away when you need to. If you're feeling overstimulated too, if the crying or chaos is starting to get to you, it's not a failure to take a break. In fact, it's wise. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a child is to pause, reset your own emotions, and come back when you're ready. Because they don't just need us to be calm, they need us to be real. So as we wrap up, let's remember the key takeaway here: overstimulation isn't misbehavior. It's a biological response to too much input. And when we learn to spot the signs, those sudden outbursts, the restlessness, the retreating, the sensitivity, the sleep struggles, we can respond not with frustration, but with understanding. Not with noise, but with peace. You don't need to be a child expert to do this. You just need to be willing to slow down, observe, and show up with an open heart. And if you're doing that, even just trying, you're already giving a child more than they could ever ask for. I hope today's conversation has left you feeling encouraged, maybe even a little empowered. If you've seen any of these signs in your own family, or if you've tried some of these calm-down approaches and want to share what worked for you, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below and let's learn from each other. Your story might just help someone else who's going through the same thing. And if you found this helpful, go ahead and give this video a like. It helps us reach more people who care about raising calmer, happier kids. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more heartfelt, helpful content for you, because parenting doesn't stop at 60, and your wisdom is more valuable now than ever. Thanks for spending this time with me. Remember, you don't have to have all the answers, you just have to be present, patient, and open to learning. Here's to bringing more peace into our homes, one calm moment at a time.